Benjamin Britten's Ceremony of Carols for upper choral voices and harp was written in 1942. It is one of his best loved and most performed works, and it's not hard to see why. It's delightful and accessible, mixing plain chant and folk music sounds with more traditional carols. It was written when Britten was 28 on board the MS Axel Johnson upon his return to the UK from the USA, where he'd fled as a conscientious objector to World War II. Picking up a book of poetry in Nova Scotia, the English Galaxy of Shorter Poems, a collection of 15th and 16th century texts, they were to be his inspiration for this anthology cycle. But this is not the first Christmas anthology Britten had written. In fact, 10 years earlier, when he was 19, studying at the Royal College of Music, he had composed another anthology Christmas cycle for choir, another piece that drew on 16th century carols and poetry that explored the balance between the classical European composers and the new contemporary techniques Britten was developing. A difficult 30-minute piece for double choir and trebles, an unstated drama, a virtuosic act of composition and storytelling. A Boy Was Born. Like his Ceremony of Carols, A Boy Was Born takes its inspiration from a variety of 16th century texts, primarily from two sources: the Oxford Book of Carols, edited by Ralph Vaughan Williams, Percy Dermer and Martin Shaw, and Ancient Christmas Carols, edited by Edith Rickert. 11 poems make up the work, primarily anonymous and fairly obscure texts, sometimes just fragments, single verses, or even single phrases, sometimes obscured or layered, all of them handpicked and transformed to tell the story Britten wanted to tell. The first movement, the theme, is the seed from which the whole piece grows. It is written simply, just a 4-part SATB chorus, considering the 9-part complications that await us. The text, taken from the Oxford Book of Carols, is from the German Poier Natus and has 3 verses. Musically, right from the start, we are introduced to the theme, found here in the sopranos, is a 4-note motif starting on D natural, rising a tone to E natural, then rising a minor third to the G natural. Sometimes referred to as 0-2-5, tonic, supertonic, dominant. This theme forms the building block of this movement, appearing in all the parts and in different starting notes. It also appears in the Alleluias, transforming to a different end note each time. The first stanza has 3 repetitions, 0-2-5 the first 2 times, and then 0-2-6 to D natural in the third. The second stanza has 4 repetitions, 0-2-5 the first 3 times, then again 0-2-6 to G natural in the third. The third and last stanza has 5 Alleluias and a climactic 0-2-7 to A natural in the last, setting up the transition into the first variation. If the theme announces the birth of Christ, sets out the stall as it were, the first variation introduces some of our cast of characters. Throughout, we have an ever-present lullaby, an offbeat ostinato Lullay motif of descending fifths and fourths that gets passed around various voices. The theme establishes itself as more than just a musical one, but almost as a leitmotif, with the Jesu counter-subject. The text is from Lullay Jesu, from Ancient Christmas Carols, and is introduced by the tenors and basses in their role as narrator. We're then introduced to Jesus as sung by the trebles. The second stanza, sung by the altos and sopranos, is Mary's expression of concern for her crying son. At this, the Jesu theme is altered by the tenors, adding a B flat, hinting at what is to come. Which is then outright confirmed by Jesus through the voice of the trebles. Jesus weeps because he anticipates the crucifixion. The choir's response to this is incredible. The climax of the movement, the thrust of the spear echoing Bach's St. John Passion and culminating in a B flat from the tenors at the top of their voice. Melvin Cook, in his chapter on pitch symbolism in Britten's operas, notes that Britten associated B-flat with dramatic situations involving discipline. Here, the B-flat is the crucifixion. After the climax, the piece appears to mirror itself, but something has changed. Mary is no longer comforting Jesus, but it is the other way around. The final B-flat in the trebles, clashing exquisitely against the A-E Lullay, keeps the crucifixion in mind to the end. Having introduced Mary and Jesus, we now introduce the third character, Herod. He is very much a bad guy. He's also so important that he gets his own leitmotif and his own word. The text is from Worship We This Holy Day from ancient Christmas carols, but we have 11 measures before we get to that. These introduction bars establish a few things. We can see the theme motif spread across the two tenor parts here, started in the second tenor with the tonic and supertonic, and completed in the first tenors with the dominant and supertonic interjection. Then we get into the meat of the thing. This is a new colour, violent, loud and angular in the lower voices. It is soon joined by the altos and sopranos as Mary enters the text. The flight itself in rising notes, faster and faster in dizzying melisma and necessitating a furious response. Noel's stabbing in chase until the final verse. We have a tonal callback in the sopranos here with the melody from the previous variation in By the Prayer of Thy Mother Good. which transforms the men's voices to bliss, slowing the tempo into a final tranquillo. We're safe. The calm centre. This short movement sits in the middle of the work. The text from ancient Christmas carols and the structure a simple one, a homophonic chorus of the people with the repeated refrain, "Save us all through thy virtue," and the trebles, Jesus, answering. The answer is essentially the same 3 times, only the last is different, an extended, decorated version of the theme. The other surprising key feature here is in the sopranos, who hold a B natural for the duration, giving some credence to the idea that this is in fact in B Dorian rather than the suggested A major or F sharp major. Mervyn Cook proposes that the B natural here holds significance in contrast to the B flat of the crucifixion, that in fact to be natural is to pursue freedom and dreams and to remain faithful to one's private desires. Or it may just be a literal ascension from the crucifixion. Either way, this supports the idea of a divine Christ answering the prayers of the people. An anonymous 15th century text, "Now Christmas is come," tells the story of the journey of the Magi, musically represented by a wandering ostinato of "ah" that starts in the basses and moves upwards through the parts. It also happens to be our theme, extended for the purpose. This pentatonic wandering starts in the basses with a key signature of E flat major, then moves into C major when it transitions into the tenors and a section about Herod. Worth pointing out, Herod's name check earns him a violent callback Noel in the altos. Then into A major in the altos when we reach Bethlehem. The other figure that features prominently in this movement is another leitmotif, the fanfare of the kings. They open fourth or fifths with a quaver upbeat. The climax and centre of the movement are the gifts themselves, gold, incense and myrrh. The wandering ahs transform into ahs of wonder, sang by all parts. Once all the gifts are given, we cycle back into E flat major and trip back down the voice parts as the kings wander back home. The most famous of the variations, this movement is a setting of two texts. The first verse of Christina Rossetti's A Christmas Carol in the Bleak Midwinter, and the 15th century Corpus Christi carol from Ancient Christmas Carols. Britten separates by voice, with the sopranos and altos singing the Rossetti and the trebles the Corpus Christi. The two settings are very different, with long-held pitches and recurring theme of snow on snow very much accompanying the more wordy Corpus Christi carol and its Lullay Lullay. Both contrast rhythmically too, with the gentle 4-4 in the sopranos and altos and a propulsive 12-8 in the trebles. Philip Ruprecht describes the effect beautifully. Each word of Rossetti's text is drawn out as a long-held pedal point, effacing semantic identity and radically stretching the duration of each sentence. This music for women's voices becomes the background against which boy trebles intone a quicker lullaby on anonymous 15th century words. Timbral contrast between older and younger high voices defines the opposition of speakers and linguistic registers, while the women paint a landscape without figures, snow on snow. The boys sing of a child borne away by a falcon. This could be seen as a return to the voicing of Variation 1, Lullay Jesu, with Mary, the sopranos and altos, mourning a dead child in the coldness of winter, and the trebles, as Jesus, describing the Passion, this time via the legend of the Holy Grail. The bleeding knight is Christ, the May his mother. This is even more in evidence with the same half-step dissonance of the A natural to B flat, the crucifixion note, deliciously stretched out in the upper voices. It also suggests B flat Lydian key with its raised fourth rather than the D minor of the key signature. For the finale, Britten chooses to set 4 different carols all feeding into each other and overlaying. In addition, he also quotes himself with references to all the previous variations. The first part of the finale only uses 2 words, Noel and wassail, both of which are variations of the theme. Noel brings with it connotations of Herod, but also now the kings, with the rising fanfare fifths in the bass. After the initial Noel section, Britten adds an excerpt from Good Day, which derives from the Three Kings harmony into the mix, as well as Our King interjections, all swirling around with exciting brio. The next section is a patter song setting of Tusser's Christmas, galloping along at tremendous speed in an excited whisper, all adding rhythmic energy. Over the top of that, the trebles join in the fun with a counter melody, quoting Quarles' A Christmas Carol. The full setting of that awaits us at the end of the finale. We then return to the Noels, this time superimposed with Welcome Yule, as things build to a final frenzy. The already energetic tempo accelerating from presto to a frankly unwise prestissimo, and then exploding at the highest point of the whole work. Followed by a shockingly loud silence. The finale of the finale has a whole new character. A unison D on the word glory, moving from part to part in double choir, stretching the theme as if now unmoored from time and space itself, until the theme returns, simpler and bolder than ever. On top of this, the trebles enter, mischievously singing back snippets of the previous variations. The wassail from 6, Lullay Lullay from 5, Herod's Noel from 2, Jesus' comforting words from 1, the answered prayer from 3. It is only after these moments in the drama have been reviewed that a new version of the theme can be sung. This child hath reconciled poor man that was forlorn and the angry God of heaven, a final gift which the choir take up with a pealing, ecstatic hosanna that builds and builds towards the culmination musically, thematically, dramatically we've been building towards all this time. D major. Even Herod can be forgiven.